Let's talk about next steps. So, we kind of talked today about some housekeeping things. I gave you an example of using a primary source to make a video game or a lesson plan and/or a lesson plan. We talked about the final project, what's expected, making sure that we're all on the same page. I hope that you can think of ways that you could use this in your own classroom, how you could apply this to your curriculum. I'm a curriculum nerd, exclamation point. So if you want ideas or to brainstorm, I'm happy to do that. I think curriculum is incredibly powerful. It can be used for good or evil or, all kinds of things. So giving you the empowerment to inform your curriculum and orchestrate your curriculum, is definitely a big part of what we want to do. In terms of feedback, Dr. De Mars, is there a way we want to collect their feedback, or what would be most beneficial to you?
Well, one thing, the Library of Congress has survey form that they use for workshops. So I will send that out to everybody.
So be looking for an email for that survey, and please do take the time to complete that. I think we factored it into your 15 hours. You're supposed to spend 15 hours on this class for a grad credit. So that is part of our calculations. So please do as the courtesy of completing that. And that'll be helpful for us as we hope to have more opportunities and pursue further grants to extend this work and to keep it going. Does anybody have questions or do you need clarification on anything for next steps? Dr. De Mars, is there anything else that you would like us to accomplish in this time?
Well, do you want to see a game that we did about saving endangered seeds?
Yeah.
So here's a funny thing. Actually, Maria told me about this. There was a global game jam, and they wanted to, well, it was a game jam between the US and New Zealand, and they were looking for more Americans, and it was all women. And so we just randomly came up with this idea of saving endangered seeds, which is funny because then you came up with this thing about seeds, and it was completely unrelated. Let's see. Can you see this?
Yes, we can.
Hopefully. Can you hear it?
We thought we had another 50 years before global warming became catastrophic. Turns out we were wrong. That's why I'm pulling together this crack team of adventurers to save seeds. Are you in? Follow me to my office where we can contact the rest of the team and discuss your assignments. Who cares about a bunch of seeds? Glad you asked that question. We need crop diversity to adapt agriculture to different environments. As the climate changes, plants that once grew in an area may no longer be viable. Also, crop rotation prevents soil degradation.
And that's one of the interesting things, the whole idea of crop rotation. We often don't think about indigenous nations as STEM, right? Like it's history. And yet the whole idea of crop rotation came independently from tribes up in North America, up, about where you all are, and tribes in Central America. Then that was adopted, in the 1800s, and all of a sudden it's a new invention. When I learned about a lot of this stuff, and Dan and I were talking about it, I don't know why it didn't occur to me before that, of course, for example, with the Aztec Empire, of course they were really good at math because they had to manage an empire of millions of people, and they had to collect taxes and they had to track all of that.
I'm not going to lie, these missions can be dangerous. Retrieving seeds in areas with venomous snakes, flying over oceans.
Hey Amelia, it's Melissa from Humboldt County, California. I have your giant sequoia and wallflower seeds. You just need to send a pilot to pick them up. You do have a pilot, don't you?
I have not died yet. So we have to get from New Zealand. But my point is you could do this with anything if you wanted it to be, Navajo and Ojibwe, and they were going to meet together oops. My children always say, Mom, you make games and you suck at them, which is true.
Seriously? Were you expecting traffic jams and movie stars? Welcome to the other side of California, home of the giant sequoia. With only 80,000 of these giant trees remaining in their native California, and more dying due to drought, fire, and insects, we are really glad you'll be saving the seeds. Picking out seeds from these giants was easy, but the Menzies wallflower will be a challenge. The giant sequoia lives over 3,000 years. The Menzies wallflower flowers once and then dies.
So that kind of gives you an idea of the things that we could do as far as a graphic novel and games. And yeah, so that's just the very beginning of it. But I thought it was kind of cool that, yeah, it was just a random thing. They said, oh, we need more women software developers, and we have a bunch from New Zealand. We don't have enough from the US. What are you doing? We just came up, we had both independently learned about, did you know there's seed vaults? I had actually been to one when I was in London in Kensington Gardens. There's a seed vault, and there's another one in Australia. And this came about in World War II because I guess they figured, how many things would get destroyed, that probably both London and Melbourne wouldn't be destroyed at the same time, or Sydney. So each of them has these collections of very endangered seeds. So I guess if London gets blown off the face of the earth, there's still some in Melbourne. And there's a third place in like the Arctic Circle that Norway maintains. And so that's how we got the idea of the game would be sending people out to collect all these different seeds to bring back to the seed ball. But it was crazy because here I am in LA, and here's this other team in New Zealand, and then we had another person in Minnesota, and we independently come up with this idea of saving the seeds. So
no, that makes sense. I'm getting ideas already. And even when I was trying to think about this seeds of sustainability, I was going through some of your games, and that's a great spot if anybody needs help. Is look at the game she has, and you'll see what's possible.
Zach, do you play drums? I know I've seen you dancing in the powwows, but were you in a drum group too, or did I imagine that?
No, yeah, I do. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I sure do.
See, so maybe music, maybe there would be our man there.
Mhm. All kinds of possibilities. Is there anything else, Dr. De Mars?
I would just say sometimes people send us ideas for games and like, oh, she didn't put mine in the game, or she wasn't paying attention to me. Sometimes we have those ideas for a while, and then we finally get the time to fit them in, because there's a couple of things. And you know what? I'm going to send this out to you all when I send out the survey just for feedback. I asked a couple of people who were veterans about their opinions on why, and I'm sure you all know this, that Native Americans have a much higher participation rate in the US military than any other ethnic group. And I think Tim Hudson Winter, who isn't here today, he was in the last two workshops, and he was saying that for Standing Rock, where he's from, it was like 10 times the mortality rate during World War II, because not only did they volunteer more, they volunteered more for dangerous missions. And so I had a couple of people send me detailed suggestions on why they thought that was, and aligning, for example, that some tribes have like a vision quest or different things that young men would do, and how that was similar to boot camp when you're trying to prove that you belong in sort of the warrior society. And I got a lot of things like this, but I don't know how they would align. I don't know how they would fit in a game. So sometimes if you send something and it doesn't get into like the warrior vets game, it will probably show up eventually. I'm not ignoring you. It's just there's some way. And then also sometimes there are ideas that I think are great ideas, but they're not ideas for games. We will never make a game about the Holocaust. That is a serious subject, is not fit for a game. Somebody mentioned in the last session about the Wounded Knee Massacre, and I think that's very important to teach about. I don't think it's a topic for a game. We could maybe do something like an interactive novel for it. So yeah, if you don't see what you suggested
That you're working
right
with.
away, down the line, a year from now, you may say, hey, that was my idea in the game.